Stealing cars is very common all around the world. In some countries there are a lot more, and in some there's way less. There are some insane records in the car stealing industry. Like for example, if you've seen the movie Gone in 60 Seconds, there is a gang in California and they have to steal 50 cars in under 72 hours. But you should see the movie if you haven't seen it already. And it's good to know that stealing cars in this level, compared to the biggest car theft in history, it seems like a joke. This video is gonna be about the biggest car theft in history. Everybody knows North Korea, a communist nation with about 25 million people. But even with this population, there's only 30,000 cars, and most of this 30,000 is in Pyongyang, the capital of the country, and the vast majority of them are military vehicles as well. If we want to compare North Korea to a normal nation in the world, Taiwan is a good choice, because this country has about 23 to 24 million people. But how many cars does it have? There are more than 8.5 million registered cars in Taiwan, and now we realize that North Korea barely has any cars. But let's take a trip to Europe, in Scandinavia, which is very cold. Sweden. In this nation, there is a car manufacturer that's popular in every country, and they also make one of the best trucks in the world as well. We are talking about Volvo, but not the modern version, the ones in the 1970s. One of the cars Volvo was making back then was the Volvo 144, a car that was considered luxury in the 70s. This car was so well made that it was considered a tank, a car that was very reliable and it was safe. Matter of fact, it was one of the safest cars in the 1970s. When this car was released, it basically blew up around the world and everybody was talking about it, and it was mostly positive. All these news gets to this guy's ears. Kim Il-sung, the first leader of North Korea. They first call Sweden and request 1,000 Volvo 144s. As you know, it's a different way that countries make deals with one another. So the Swedish government told Volvo to ship 1,000 144s to North Korea, and the deal was when the car gets there, they wire transfer the $70 million. The ship goes towards North Korea and stops at a port. You could say the North Koreans were very happy about the deal, and after, the Swedish government requests their money. Kim Il-sung said, "Okay, I'll do it as soon as I can." Time passes, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. The Swedish government keeps requesting for their money, but the North Koreans stopped responding. Whatever message they left, whatever news network they talked to, the North Koreans didn't even pay attention and did not answer to their calls. Most of these Volvos were turned into taxi, and they weren't really used for taxi. It was a certain group of people that were able to be picked up, not just anyone off the streets. You might say, why did Sweden do? Why did they trust a country like this? We have to say that in the 1970s, the Soviet Union was still thriving, and that is the exact reason why North Korea's economy was booming alongside the Soviet Union, and Sweden knew this. And that is why when Kim Il-sung ordered 1,000 144s, the Swedish government got happy about it, and they felt like they made an easy $70 million. Another interesting about all this is that the first Western embassy that was opened in North Korea was the Swedish embassy, and it was to perform this deal. Time passes and we get to year 1975, the time where the North Korean economy is going downhill, and Sweden realized what is happening to their economy, and they basically lost hope. They got the cars and they're not gonna pay up. 49 years has passed, and we still see these Volvos in Pyongyang, and it seems like they're driving good. This caused a lot of Westerners to raise some questions. If they stole 1,000 Volvos, how are they still running on the streets half a century later? Where did they get the parts? Is someone selling parts to them illegally? Or are they producing it themselves, which I highly doubt it. Most people say the parts come through China, just like plenty of other supplies that get smuggled into the border, including this Mercedes-Benz meant for Kim Jong-un. $70 million of Volvo's money went to the trash. So if this happened, why didn't Volvo go bankrupt? We have to say that Volvo didn't lose a dime, and that's because this was an export and it was insured by the Swedish government. And Volvo had already received the 70 million from the Swedish government. So that means the Swedish government lost out on all that money. 49 years has passed, and every year the Swedish government requests for their money to be paid. And it's no longer 70 million. If you include inflation and the late fees, we are up to $322 million now. And it seems like the North Koreans just say, you can request whatever, we ain't paying it. Another interesting story is that Kim Il-sung was a very opportunistic fellow, and he realized he could easily scam Western company, get supplies from them, and basically never pay for them. Like 2 years after the Volvo situation where they haven't paid for them, they scam Rolex. Kim Il-sung contacts Rolex and requests 2,000 Rolex watches, and he requested for an engraving in the Korean language that says donated by Kim Il-sung. Nobody knows who actually received these gifts, but either way, it cost 5 million euro, and they still haven't paid Rolex for them. So why doesn't Sweden go after their money and they don't put pressure on North Korea? It all has to do with politics, because the only Western country that has an embassy in North Korea is Sweden, and any Western country that wants to have a relationship or wants to talk with North Korea, they have to go through Sweden, and this is a form of power for Sweden. That is why they don't really put pressure on North Korea about it. They just ask for it once a year, and Kim Jong-un replies, sure. Rolex is still in a pickle as well. They don't know when they're gonna get their 5 million euros. And Rolex didn't have the insurance that Volvo had. These deals were between two huge companies, and their amount was very high. There are a lot of other deals that North Korea has done that's way less money, but they still haven't paid them back. And let's not forget, they really don't have the money to pay them. There is insane sanctions on their country, and nobody really makes any money. And it's good to know that most of the population is starving to death. At least not this guy.